Welcome back to Mean Streets, where each week we investigate the best, worst, and forgotten movies of film noir. I'm Luke Deckard.
And I'm Matthew Booth.
And today's case is 1995's Devil in a Blue Dress, starring Denzel Washington, Jennifer Beals, Tom Sizemore, and Don Cheadle, and written and directed by Carl Franklin. The logline for Devil in a Blue Dress is a black war hero is hired to find a mysterious woman and gets mixed up in a murderous political scandal in 1948 Los Angeles. Devil in a Blue Dress. Matt, your initial reaction to watching this film? Let's hear it.
It's a good old-fashioned PI noir detective story based on a good old-fashioned PR noir detective story.
Indeed.
And as far as adaptations, yeah, well, I have read the book. I've read a few of Mosely's books, Walter Mosely's books, but a fair few years ago. I've not read it recently, but from memory, it's not a bad adaptation. It's fairly faithful to its source, from what I recall, which is always a bonus for me. Always a bonus. But with a few niggles along the way, which we'll get into, this really ticks every box I've got for what this sort of story should be.
Yeah. I agree. It's a really faithful adaptation, really faithful. There are a few small changes here and there, which are absolutely fine. But yeah, as adaptations go, we've covered a few like The Big Sleep and A Walk Among Tombstones. This one might be one of the best adaptations of a hard-boiled novel, in my opinion. It's so well done, and it hits the themes and captures the themes of what the book is all about so well.
It does. It definitely does that.
Yeah, I've always been impressed with this film, and I've always been surprised that it's never been a massive film. But we'll touch upon that. But let's go behind the camera and chat a little bit about the people who made it. So it cost $22 million. And it made $22 million.
That's crazy to me. That's to absolutely break even. That's just nuts to me. Yes. It does deserve to have made a profit. Perhaps it's impossible to say what sort of profit it should have made, but it should certainly have done better than just breaking even.
It should have. I'm gutted that this film didn't make money. I'm gutted we don't have a trilogy of easy roll-in movies.
Yeah, definitely. With Denzel Washington.
Yeah, because he was fantastic. It just absolutely gutted because we deserve it.
We do, yeah, we do. And what's more, I'll put that another way, if I may. We have got sequels and third films and maybe even fourth films that are far less deserving to have been made than any sequel to this. So we'll say the same point in different ways. But the fact that this didn't get a sequel and didn't at least a third is a crime, for want of a better word. It really is. It is criminal, yeah.
So Carl Franklin is an interesting guy. He was an actor first. So actor turned director. So he was in a bunch of shows throughout the 70s. So things like Five on the Black Hand Side from 1973, The Rockford Files. He did like guest stars in The Incredible Hulk and McCain's Law and A-Team, which is just awesome to me. And then
it's awesome to me. It's awesome to me, especially The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, so I think in those roles he had a bit role, but I think in McCain's Law, I think he had a larger role in that, and a couple other larger roles in a couple of TV series that sadly didn't go very far. And then he transitioned into directing. And the first kind of breakout film that he did was one called One False Move from 1991. That one got him the most sort of acclaim. As a director, he's not done a lot of film. He did Devil in a Blue Dress, a couple other movies along the way. But since around the 2010s, he focused mostly on television. But he's done a lot of really good television as well. Like he's done. Have you ever seen like House of Cards? The UK.
I'm a big fan of the original, but I have seen some of the American remake. Yeah, Yeah.
The first 2 seasons of House of Cards are fantastic. Beyond that, it's not worth your time. But like, he worked on that, which is, those are great. He worked on Mindhunter on Netflix, which was a David Fincher series that was sadly canceled. Worked on Ray Donovan, also worked on Dahmer and 13 Reasons Why. He's worked on a bunch of really popular TV shows. And having watched Devil in a Blue Dress and knowing these other shows he's worked on, I'm like, have we also, like, in addition to shortchanging the world with not having more Easy Rollin movies, have we also shortchanged the world by not having more Carl Franklin directed films?
I would say so. I would definitely say so, because this is a brilliantly directed film. In terms of what the choices he makes as director, they are absolutely spot on for the genre, for the story that's being told, and for the actors he's got beneath him. That, every choice he makes, almost every choice he makes, is the right one. So yeah, I think that breaking even return has robbed us of 2 potentially valuable sources of really good entertainment.
Yes, because at the time when the rights were bought, they bought the right to all 3 Easy Rollins movies or books that Walter Mosely had come out at the time. So it sounds like it's a mixture of both the film breaking, well, not even breaking even, not making really any money at all, but also there was a few executives who left around that same time. That looks like that was probably why no other sequels were even considered, because you know what it's like when we're dealing with it right now with Warner Brothers and David Zaslav. It's anytime these new studio executives come in and they want to do it their way, they'll look at the numbers and be like, well, that doesn't work because of da. Instead of thinking it could have worked, maybe let's reshape it so that it can work better. But there we are.
Yeah, and instead of looking at what they got and seeing it's clearly a property that's got potential. We've said this before about TV series, haven't we? TV shows where they're cancelled after the first season before they've even been allowed to develop, and hit their stride. These execs do tend to sort of throw things out at the first hurdle if it's not made a ton of money, and clearly that's what's happened. Well, I say clearly, I think that's probably what happened here. Easy Rollins doesn't work, so let's get rid of him. Instead of saying, well, what was good about this and why hasn't it worked? Why has it not made more money? Because it's just, we've said it before, haven't we? It's just a lazy attitude to filmmaking and to distribution and to all the rest of it. You don't make me a quick book, I'm not interested.
So Franklin admits that Roman Polanski's Chinatown, he's a big fan of that. And I think you can watch this movie and quite clearly see influences from Chinatown, but also influences from, just the history of film noir, because Mosley's book is so unashamedly hard-boiled that you can't really adapt this novel without leaning into all of that stuff. But I think another reason Franklin was a good choice for this movie was because he came at it with that love of neo-noir,
Yeah, I agree. And you're absolutely right. You can see where Chinatown and Devil in a Blue Dress sort of collide with each other for split seconds, and like atoms coming together. You can see it happen, and you think, hang on, that's his Polanski shot, or that's his Nicholson performance. It's scattered throughout the film. And it's interesting you mentioned LA Confidential, because I also think that the way it's photographed and the way some scenes are constructed is very, to my mind, very LA Confidential as well. Especially in those scenes where you get away from the bright orange groves that we've talked about when we did the LA Confidential episode. When you move away from those into the seedier parts, and particularly in the police station, the precinct, and in the cells, and in the in the nighttime shots, all that you can sort of see seeping into Devil in a Blue Dress.
Mm-hmm. Well, we should
all those things that I've said this before, like all those influences. The film doesn't wear it on its sleeve, and it doesn't sort of signal them and signpost them and have a fanfare with them. They're just there if you know those other films. You know, you could watch this film and not know that. And that's always what I prefer, the subtlety of influence being evident rather than it being shamelessly forced on your throat.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's also, we should be very, very clear about this. LA Confidential came out after The Devil in the Blue Dress. It came out 2 years later. So what we're seeing is that you can see how all of this stuff is influencing each other, and LA or
it's all feeding
Chinatown
into
is influencing Devil in Blue Dress. Devil in Blue Dress is feeding into LA Confidential, and they're all taking and sharing and building off one another. And you can feel it. I mean, all three of those movies are just the kind of that archetypal, like, corruption story, you know, that like what you would expect from an LA based noir film.
Yeah, we've said this on other shows as well, discussing other films, that there are certain noir tropes, aren't there? That occur and reoccur and reoccur and reoccur. And the trick to stop those becoming cliches or fully blown cliches is how you deal with them.
Yeah.
And this film does that. This film, so it has the tough cops and it has the political corruption. It very much so in this film, which we'll come on to later. And it has blackmail and it has double crosses and it has bodies turning up out of nowhere. But the style with which it's done and the political and social overtones of these things happening is what makes this film special, and its own creation, its own construct. Do you know what I mean? So that those tropes are there, but they don't seem hackneyed. They seem conversely quite fresh because they're done in the framework of this particular film. And it takes a good director, a good writer, in this case the same man, and some good performances for that to work, in my view. Otherwise it can be very, very, well, this is just a retread of all the other film noirs that we've seen, and this manages to avoid it.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's interesting because Franklin pointed out in the if you like watch the Criterion Blu-ray reissue of the film, there is a interviews and commentaries and things like that. And at one point, he makes a Carl Franklin makes a point to sort of discuss why film noir, or I guess neo noir at this point, doesn't bring in big audiences. And it's something we've talked about in the past. There are certain films where, like, you know, well, why didn't they lean more into this? Or why, you know, they say that this doesn't have a big appeal, but clearly over here it has. Like, what is the problem there? And so he sort of postulates that the reason the genre doesn't attract huge audiences that like maybe want to go to all the superhero blockbusters is because film noir, in the way that hard-boiled fiction, appeals more to a more mature audience, and you're therefore not going to be able to grab all of the, you know, young people with a bunch of, you know, money to splash on a superhero movie. Your target audience is, as much as you want it to be everyone, isn't going to be everyone. And I think there's probably something to that idea when it comes to noir today. When, you know, film noir, I mean, we talked about it with The Fall Guy. It's ridiculous that film wasn't marketed as a thriller, because it is ultimately a thriller with stunts. Yeah, you know.
Yeah,
but
and a little bit of comedy.
Yeah, you know, same with The Nice Guys.
Yeah, at its heart, both those films, The Nice Guys and The Fall Guy, are really good film noir mysteries. They really are. But I agree. I don't know if you're paraphrasing there or if you're quoting. But either way, I agree that your target audience isn't going to be 15-year-old kids. Yeah. For a movie like this, they're not going to be interested. I doubt they'd even have the attention span to concentrate on what's going on, because there's not an explosion every 5 minutes. But that's an old man talking. Because what I like about these films like Chinatown, LA Confidential, even some of the ones from the 40s, The Big Sleep, Murder My Sweet, they are by their nature labyrinthine in plot, and they are very much you've got to keep up, because they're moving. The pace is so quick that they're moving from one lead to the next at breakneck speed, and you have to keep up. You have to be by the side of that PI or that wronged man or whoever the character might be to make any sense of it. And that takes some concentration. It really does. If it's done well, it takes some concentration. Because they're meant to be complex mysteries. They're not whodunits. They're not which of these 7 people is the killer, which is a different type of concentration. This is, I think, what Chandler called the mysterious situation. The mystery is who's doing what and why, and what exactly are they doing. You might know who's doing what. The mystery comes in why they're doing it and what exactly they are doing. And I think that's true. I think that is absolutely. It doesn't matter if you know who the criminal is or who the killer is in the first 2 reels of one of these movies. That's not the point of any of them, and it's not the point of any of the fiction that it's based on. It's the point is the mystery at the heart of it and what is happening. And to find that out, you've got to have your wits about you. And you do need to concentrate on these films, and that's why I think he says the target audience is older than your average teenage cinema goer who does just want a very loose story and some stunts and explosions.
I think so. No, I think there really is quite a lot to that. You mentioned earlier about the cast being quite electric, and so let's move on to the cast. So Denzel Washington is fantastic in this movie, but it's also very early in his career. So he's not someone put it somewhere that he's not Denzel Washington quite yet, but he's very quickly getting there because he's done this movie off the back of A Soldier Story, Cry Freedom, Glory, Malcolm X, Crimson Tide. So he is very quickly like shooting up as a Hollywood star, and as Hollywood stars go, he is one of the few actors today who still has that, what I would say, like classic Hollywood charisma.
You beat me to it. I was going to say he's very much cut from the same cloth or sculptured from the same marble, whatever metaphor you want to say, as the old-fashioned Hollywood system. He's one of the last great movie stars of that tradition, of that type. And in this film, he can't be. Is he 30 yet, or is he? Probably. If he is, he's not. He's only just. If he is, because he looks very young.
He is very young in this, but he's. I reckon he's pushing. I bet he's pushing 30, close to. But as casting goes, I think that was perfect casting for this.
So do I. It's almost Rathbone's Holmes perfect casting. Of the actors that would have been available at the time, you couldn't have done better than this, could you? You couldn't have done better than Denzel Washington for this role.
It would have been really hard. I don't know who you would have got, but I think he just has that charisma and the way that he walks through scenes, being both tough and vulnerable and frightening and frightened.
Yeah,
he balances everything just so perfectly.
Yeah, you're beating me to all the points, Luke, because there are bits where you think, I won't mess with this fella, and the bit where he takes the hammer to the bar in the
oh yeah, it's a Joppy's bar
in the bar.
He loves his marble countertop, and he loves
his marble countertop, and he's just but for a reason we might come on to, like Easy Rollins.
We can spoil it. You can say it now. Let's just get into it. Let's just get into it.
Well, Joppy's sold him a bum steer, hasn't he, and betrayed him to a certain extent. So, and he wants to get some information out of it. He knows the only way he's going to get it. He knows that Joppy's going to soft soap him because he's going to say, "We're buddies, which he does." Until he brings out this massive hammer and starts pummeling this marble bar, and scenes like that. But also, he does take a proper kicking and convincing kickings in this film. And there are moments when He has a knife to his throat at one point, and you can tell that he's genuinely scared. He has a knife to his eyeball at one point, and a gun in his ear. For God's sake, I mean, bit of overkill maybe, but and you can tell he's frightened then.
Yeah,
and that vulnerability is very important, because otherwise these characters become two-dimensional, and they become just tough guys. They become an A-team member.
Yeah,
they need that sort of, because they need that vulnerability, because very often they are not always in control of the situation they've found themselves in or put themselves in. One of the things I love about Marlowe, he walks into darkened rooms not knowing what's going to happen, but that's his job, so he does it. And it could work out okay, it could not. And you get that with Denzel Washington, like in every scene that he has to do something like that in. It's a brilliant performance, it really is, and it's a believable performance.
Oh, very. I love it. Yeah, I kind of building off of that, because it ties into performance, but then also theme of the movie. Like, he goes after Joppy's bar because he knows that marble countertop is precious to him. In the same way, we know that with Easy, his house is precious to him.
His house is everything. Yeah.
It really is an interesting look at the Black experience of the 40s, because the film opens up with Denzel's out of work, or Easy Rollins is out of work, and he's worried about not being able to pay his mortgage, and all he wants in life is to have a house. And he like the way Joppy maintains that countertop, Easy is maintaining that house. He's trimming those trees. He's trimming those bushes. He's planting trees. He's running that guy off who wants to chop everybody's trees.
Keeps trying to cut his trees down. That's a brilliant running gag throughout the film. It's really, really good, because I don't think it's explained, is it, why this bloke is cutting down the trees? But
I think it's explained. I think it's in the book, and it might be explained. I can't remember what he's doing, but no, it's not explained in the movie.
It's not explained in the film, I don't think. And then he's doing it to neighbours, isn't he? And he runs over and chases him off this girl's lawn. That's a brilliant running gag. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Easy is proud of his house because, it means status for him, which at the time will have been hugely important. When throughout this film, people keep saying, it's whites only in this part of the hotel, or white is only in this part of the bar, or whatever the place is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got his own private sanctum that is his, and that's why he's so offended when people keep breaking into it and eating his ham sandwiches and drinking his whiskey. Yeah, because more than one person seems to do that.
Yeah, but also at the early on when he is fired from his job, or he's let go, the guy calls him fella, and he's like, "My name's not fella." He's like, and it's that sort of demanding of respect, because the guy isn't just calling him fella because he's he's just being chummy with him. He's not respecting Easy as a person. He's not caring to learn the guy's name.
No, he's not seeing him as a person, is he? He's seeing him as a commodity. Race relations is central to this film and to the book. And it's throughout the film. And it's one extra hurdle that Easy has to get over, isn't it?
Yes.
And that makes it just that little bit more layered and interesting than it perhaps would have been otherwise. So
it makes it more dangerous.
It makes it more dangerous for him. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And you've got the cops who, this is what I mean about taking tropes or dangerous cliches and doing something different with them, because every PI gets beaten up by the cops, don't they? Happens all the time. But that what's motivating this is not that they don't like Shamus, or they don't like gumshoes, they don't like PIs. That it's race related as well, don't you?
Yeah.
You know that secondary cop is a racist and enjoys it.
I think they all are racist. I don't think any of them are good.
He's worse than the other one, because the other one does pull him off and says, and gives Easy like another 24 hours to find some information out. But obviously. Well, they're all the cops from LA Confidential, aren't they? That's the reality of the cops in this sort of story. But it's not just, we don't like you, Marlowe, because you're a PI. This is, we don't like you, Easy, because you're a PI, and we don't like your race.
Yeah, because there's that really haunting moment very, very early on where they're literally threatening to plant false evidence in his house if he doesn't cooperate.
Yeah.
You know, he knows how quickly his life could be ruined by engaging with the police, which is why that first interrogation scene is so haunting when you watch it, and if you're paying attention to what's going on. So on the wall, there is a smear of blood.
There is, yeah.
And if you don't pay attention, you might not notice it, but that tells you what happens in that room where no one can see.
Yeah, and that's a brilliant piece of cinematography. That a brilliant piece of cinema storytelling.
Yeah,
you know, because when I saw it, I thought of the it's like, is his mouth going to be bleeding? Is his eye going to be bleeding? Whatever. And when he turns around, it's not. And then that's a real jolt. You say, "Oh, right, I'm with you then. All right, fair enough."
Yeah.
You know, now we know what you two do in this room. You know, and all the other members of the precinct, we know what you do in this room. This is the room for it to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and they don't tell him why he's there, do they? They don't even give him any indication at first why he's there. They just start like questioning him and then battering him. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And then again, that in that same scene, like he begins to fight back.
He fights
back. They whip out that gun, and that's where I was saying you have that perfect. Denzel walks that perfect line of being frightening and frightened, where the minute that gun comes out, you can see the terror in his eyes because he knows, oh my God, they're going to kill me, and no one is going to care.
Yeah. Yeah, and you also see
the scene.
It is a great scene, and again, like I said, I'm going to keep banging on about this, but we've seen that scene many times, but we've never seen it done with that extra layer of subtext, and directed in this way, photographed in this way, set decorated in this way with the smear on the wall, and acted in this way, and that's what makes it seem so fresh. When really it's a scene that you've seen many, many times before over films from the 40s up to, in this case, the 90s. But you don't think you've seen it before because of the way it's treated, and that is brilliant, brilliant cinema for me.
Yeah, I agree. There's so many scenes that I absolutely loved. I mean, like the pier scene. My God, the pier scene.
Oh, where
he's talking to Easy's talking to a white girl, or a white girl comes up and starts talking to him, and then her like preppy white friends come over and start giving Easy a hard time. And he's like, "Look, I'm just sitting here. She's talking to me." Like
it's important to say she speaks to him first. He is just minding his own business.
Yes.
Well, and he's
there to meet Albright. He's there to meet the gangster Albright.
He's there to meet he's there to meet the white PI. And that is his business. That's the business he's minding. You know, she comes up and starts talking to him. He doesn't ask for it. He doesn't make eyes at her or anything like that. And then they come and start on him, and he's right. When he says, "Look, I'm just standing here. I'm not. It's nothing to do with me. She's talking to me." He's telling the truth. He's right, you know. But they're not prepared to listen.
And it's
one of those for obvious reasons. Again,
it was one of those fascinating scenes again where it's like in that moment, I'm like, "Look, like easy, Roland, easy, man. You could probably take these guys. You could probably take them, but he's afraid of them.
Yeah,
he's legitimately afraid of them because he knows the power of their ethnicity over his, and it's done so subtly, and if you're like I said, if you're paying attention, you're gonna see it, and it's heartbreaking because it's you know, a lot of modern films when they try and touch upon race relations, like they do it a bit ham-fisted, where this one you have to really look at the people's face. They're not going to spell it out why this is so dangerous for Easy. You just have to observe the scene and work it out for yourself, which is easy enough to do if you put the effort in.
Yeah, and you have to keep your eyes on Denzel Washington's performance.
Yeah,
because it's all in his eyes, it's all in his face, it's in his body language. It's just a complete performance for me. You know, and that goes through again to the next time that you see the fear in his eyes, which is when they tell him that, or he realizes that he's got two murders over his head, and he is the fall guy. And there's going to be absolutely nothing that defense counsel can do for him because he is the circumstantial evidence against him, but his skin color is wrong.
Yeah, well, he says in the film, he says a white man is dead, so someone will have to pay, and he knows that they're gonna pin it on him.
Yeah, and doesn't he say? Yeah, doesn't he say? And it matters now, or something like that?
Yeah, it matters now. Yes. Yeah. Because earlier in the movie, basically, Easy is trying to find a woman named Daphne, who is a white girl who's been hanging out at a bunch of like black bars and black parts of town, and she is or was the girlfriend of a guy who was running for mayor, who for some reason mysteriously dropped out. And then this other guy stepped in who seems this other candidate stepped in who seems a bit sleazy. So as he's trying to get information, one of the first people to die is a woman named Coretta, who is a friend of Daphne's, and this is where like Easy falls into that like kind of classic PI of also being a little bit morally ambiguous, because he goes home with her Coretta and her boyfriend Dupree, and Dupree is flat out drunk, unconscious drunk,
totally passed out,
and she basically agrees to give him information if they sleep together. And then she starts, I mean, she's such a tease in that scene. She's banging him, getting. She's basically edging him, where it's like getting him right to the point, and then stopping and saying, "Oh, you're only doing this because of Daphne." He's like, "No, I like you. Actually, I like you. Just finish."
But he says at one point, doesn't he? He says at one point something like, "You really got me going now. Come on."
Yeah, and you can feel it in the scene. The scene has that energy. It's both uncomfortable because Dupree is in the other room, and then also because of what's happening to him.
And to be fair to Easy, to give Easy his moral due, he does, before all this happens, he does say, when she tells him that that's what she wants, he does say, "Your man's next door asleep.
Yeah,
we can't do that." Even if he's tempted, his first reaction is to say no. But he does sort of give in very easily.
He gives pretty quickly. Yes, he does. But
we're all of us human, Luke.
It's true. But Coretta is the first person to die in this mystery. And at that point, it's the police aren't making that big of a deal of it. It's when the next death happens. It's this guy named McGee, who is a white guy that's connected to Daphne, that the police really think, okay, we got to do something about this. And this guy McGee, we see him briefly in the very beginning. He's trying to get into one of the speakeasies that's above a grocery store.
This is another instance of you've got to be paying attention.
Yep. Because
she calls him the woman behind the counter of the grocery store under this speakeasy.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of, it's fair to say, overlapping dialogue.
Mm.
So it's easily missed, but you've got to be paying attention to it. She does call him McGee. She calls him by his name.
Mm-hmm.
And you see him enough to register his features. But apart from a very brief shot which shows Easy remembering him, when his name is mentioned and he is shown as the corpse, there's nothing to, sort of prompt you to remember him at that initial stage, but you could be forgiven for going, "Who's this fella? Who is this fella?" But if you've not, and that's only if you've not been paying attention, because if you have, you know exactly who he is. Because that scene makes it clear and focuses on him for long enough for him to be a subliminal message almost in the back of your head. It's another example of you've got to pay attention in this film.
Yes. Now, any good hard-boiled novel or film noir is, always has to have the gangster, which is played by Tom Sizemore. He plays Dwight Albright, who is the guy who hires Easy to find Daphne. Now, what's very interesting about this, I don't know if you knew this or picked up on this, but the introduction of Albright, the opening of A Devil in a Blue Dress, is a play on the opening of Farewell, My Lovely, where you have the white guy, Marlowe, going into a black bar, and there's some uncomfortable tension that happens. And so that's what happens here. Albright is kind of fulfilling that Marlowe-esque role going into a black bar looking for a white girl, and they're both are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
I love Mosley's play on that.
Yeah, I think it's really good. I mean, and I think Albright is a PI, isn't he?
He's either a PI or he's a gangster or he's something. He's a bad guy though. He's a whatever.
He's definitely a bad guy. Yeah, he's definitely a bad guy. But you don't know he is straight away, do you? But I got the impression he was a PI and that he was just sort of subcontracting this particular part.
Yeah, I think
too easy because he can't walk through black bars as easily as Easy could. And Daphne's into black men rather than white men, so she wouldn't speak to him. You know, there's definitely a suggestion that is the case. But yeah, you're right. It is a riff on Farewell, My Lovely. And again, it's this scene, but we're going to do something different with it. You know, we're just going to tweak it a little bit by reversing everything. And it's very well done. You know, what can I say? It's very well done.
It is, and I think Tom Sizemore as Albright, I think again is really perfect casting.
Casting.
He's very much a character actor. Like you will see him in all sorts of films, from True Romance to Strange Days to Heat. Like he's always a character actor in a lot of really big movies. And
yeah, he's in. I think he's in Natural Born Killers, and
yes,
he might even be in Heat. I think.
No, he is in Heat. Yeah.
So he is one of those character actors that's in a lot of stuff, but never really the star. You know.
Yeah, but he is fantastic as Albright.
He is. He's brilliant in it.
The way, like, you know, kind of mentioning how like Denzel balances things, the way he balances this. Hey man, I need you to do this job. I like you. Will you do this job? Do this job for me. Okay, now I don't like you. Now I'm going to put a goddamn knife to your neck. And now you're keeping information from me. I'm going to kill you now. Like the way he just, it can easily have been a caricature, but again, I think the power of the writing, the power of the directing, and the power of the actor was perfect in this with this
it
character.
Is. And he has that. He also has that. As you say, he starts off giving the impression that he likes Easy and has no problem with him. But the reality is, he has no respect for him whatsoever because he breaks into Easy's house, makes himself a sandwich, drinks the whiskey, and then says that the whiskey is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know that's all it might be, but it's all Easy can afford. But he's bought it with his own money, and it's got integrity, even though it's cheap, sort of thing.
And this is just happened. This happens not a few scenes after the pier scene, where in that pier scene where Albright comes in and saves Easy from these bullies.
Easy, saves.
Basically, makes this preppy white boy suck Easy's cock.
Yeah,
you know, like forces the kid to get down on his knees, and Easy's like, I don't want this to happen, but Albright's like, it's gonna happen, and the kid's like, you know, like, and so it almost makes you think, oh man, Albright, is he actually all right? Is he an all right guy? And then it's like, no, come on, ulterior motives,
and they become clear as the film goes on. But yeah, it's the same story, isn't it? You know, it's all putting on a front to put Easy at ease. But really, he just looks on him as a nobody, as worthless, and he's just the same as all the others. You know, he's just a white fella using a black fella for his own ends, and he's nothing. Easy is nothing more than a piece of meat. And then there's that great line. Where Easy says, "Well, right, in that moment, I was ready to start fighting back." And I get goosebumps. I'm getting goosebumps now just saying it, repeating it. But watching the film, it's a real good sort of crowd-pleasing moment, but understated. It's not a fanfare at all. But if you're invested in this film and you're invested in Easy Rawlins' character and his journey, that is a turning point, and it's one that makes you cheer. It's really, really good.
Yeah. I totally agree. Another person who I thought was just perfectly cast, but wasn't certain of the role at the time, was Don Cheadle as Mouse. So,
Mouse is one of my favorite characters of all.
Yes, I love Mouse. So Don Cheadle at the time, he was very young. He was in his early 20s in this role. And he even said, I think I might be too young for this.
Yeah, he turned it down, didn't he?
Yeah, Franklin was like, no, you're the one. You're the one. And I absolutely love Mouse. I love Cheadle's performance as Mouse because it has that, if you read the book, you might envision Mouse a little bit differently. But Cheadle, I think, being kind of a smaller guy, young, you get that sense of he is young and brash and irrational and unpredictable.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
And he lives up to that in this movie. He
does. He has a great line where he has a great line. Well, I'm just, if I may jump to the end, or I won't spoil anything, but he has a line where he's left a witness stroke suspect in the care of Mouse while he goes to perform another duty.
Yes.
Easy ends up needing Mouse's help to get out of a situation, and Mouse turns up. When they get back to the car, Easy has made Mouse promise that he won't shoot this character. And Mouse says, well, they get back to the car and he's dead. Mouse says, I didn't shoot him. He says, what happened then? He says, I strangled him.
That's true.
That's good on so many levels for me. It's funny. It's delivered brilliantly.
And he says it so earnestly. Like, he's like, I did the right thing. And it's like, God, you didn't.
It's like with the Terminator.
Like, God, no.
Yeah. It's like in Terminator 2 where Connor says to the Terminator, don't kill anyone. And he shoots like security guard in the knee.
Yes.
And he says, I told you not to shoot anyone. And he says, he'll live. It's that sort of, I did what I promised. I didn't shoot him. You should have been more specific in your instructions, I think is what he says.
Yes. Something like that, which is great. I love that. But even Mouse's first introductory scene when he there's someone attacks, someone is waiting to attack Easy in his house. Again, his house is broken into, his sanctum is violated once again.
Yeah, once again.
And it's funny because the tree chopper is he's trying to tell Easy that someone's in his house, but Easy won't listen to him because he doesn't like the guy. So he goes inside, gets into a kerfuffle, and then subdues the guy with Mouse's help, who comes in and saves the day right at the last minute. But with that, you're just waiting for Mouse to shoot the guy. You're just waiting for him to shoot the guy. And Easy's trying to get him to talk him down to not do that, but then he does it anyway. Or like the scene when they're in the car, when they've captured a couple other people when they've got Joffrey in the car, and they're Joppy in the car, and they're he's wanting to find out where Daphne is because it's an urgent race to kind of save her life towards the end of the film. And he just Mouse is driving the car and he's just firing his gun at the back, and it's like, what are you doing?
He shoots the back windshield out, doesn't he? And he shoots the seat. He shoots the seat just right in the middle of where Easy and Joppy are sitting. Could have killed either of them.
Exactly. It's like, he is so nuts. He is so stinking nuts. But I love it.
He's a brilliant character. He's a brilliant character. And I only really know Don Cheadle primarily from his Marvel work, but this was a revelation to me. This is as a performance, this was a revelation to me.
Yeah.
Because this is
great.
This is head and shoulders above his work in any of those films.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that I knew Don Cheadle before Marvel. I knew him way before Marvel, way before. So he is a very good actor. He's very good in the Ocean's movies. He's in the Ocean's 11 films as well.
Is. I'd forgotten about them. Yeah, I'd forgotten about them.
He does put on a very bad English accent that I've always said if they do a new one, a fourth one, someone just needs to say, because I can't remember his name in the film, but someone needs to say, hey, Don, whatever his character's name is, stop with the English accent. And then he just needs to speak with his normal accent,
his normal voice,
as if he's been putting it on all of these years, because it's so bad. And I think that would make for such a funny gag, but that's a side story. But, story. Yeah. Anyway, Don Cheadle's fantastic. He was excellently cast.
And they're a great double act. They're a great Holmes and Watson double act. They really are. Because for all Easy's vulnerability and for all his toughness, there's no vulnerability in Mouse, is there?
No.
And yet together, they work brilliantly as a team, even as long as Easy can keep Mouse under control, which he can't always do. And that adds a really nice bit of comedy to what is otherwise quite a dark and gritty film, that deals with serious issues. And it needs that sort of slice of comedy to stop it being totally oppressive, I think. Yeah. And again, it's written so well, it's performed so well, and it's directed so well that it really does give you a bit of relief and a bit of comfort, as it were, from the more serious stuff that the story is actually about and that the characters are actually up to.
Yeah,
but it never seems out of tone. It never seems out of out of the atmosphere. It seems comedy that is perfectly bred from the situation they're in. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, it's very, very well handled. It's one of those things where it's like, this film is a masterwork. Like that's why it's such a shame that it just wasn't it should have been a massive hit in 1995, but
it should have been.
Damn.
It really should have been, and we should have got those other two.
We should have. So again, like we have our gangsters, we got our unpredictable companions. We also have our femme fatale in Jennifer Beals. She plays Daphne du Maurier. Interestingly, there I noticed some criticism about her casting. So basically, for those who, I'm assuming everyone who's listening to this has seen the film, and that's why you're listening to this. But some viewers thought at the time that it was too obvious. So the twist in the film is that Daphne is a white girl who prefers the company of black men. But she's also dated high, powerful people that were running for political office. What you eventually find out is that she's actually mixed race. So she's very light skinned, and that's how she was able to maneuver between the white community and the black community and be accepted in both with relative ease. The white community doesn't know the truth that she's mixed race. The black community are sort of aware. Some people in her circle are aware, but not everyone. A lot of people still see her as a white girl, even in the black community.
And that's why the white politician has had to pull out.
Yeah, so the white politician pulls out because it's revealed that she's mixed race, and despite loving her, knows that he can't run and have a mixed race wife or girlfriend. So it's all very tense. In terms of theme, like, race has a double meaning. There's like the race as an individual, your ethnicity, but there's also the political race that's happening along the way, and how that is being, and how the races are in conflict with each other. And I think it's handled really quite well, but I found it interesting that people found it obvious because of Jennifer Beals' casting, because I guess they thought she didn't look white enough, which is, I guess it's interesting because the film is all about race and looks, and that character falls into that very complicated commentary on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree, to be honest. Look, I don't disagree with you. I disagree with the criticism. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would accept that.
Yeah,
it's got, when that reveal is done, is exposed, as it were. It's got to be believable, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And if they cast, I don't know, Kim Basinger, it clearly wouldn't have been believable. There's got to be some sort of hint. Otherwise, it comes out of nowhere, and it wouldn't make any. And it just fail as a twist. It would fail, And because so much of this story hangs on her mixed race in terms of the political race and some of the secrets and why people are being blackmailed and why there's money flying around and all the rest of it. You've got to be able to sell that as the filmmakers and buy it as the audience. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a pretty bum rap, I have to say, for Jennifer Beals. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'd be very much in her corner.
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy with Jennifer Beals in the casting. I think, sure, you could have casted a even slightly lighter skinned mixed race individual, possibly, but I think Jennifer Beals was fantastic in the role. I think it was, it's everyone is balancing so many things, and I think she balances that really well. That walk between two ethnicities.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I can't think who else from the time that you would cast.
Who knows? Unknown. Who knows?
An unknown.
Yeah.
But I think to criticize it for making it too obvious. I mean, I don't think it is obvious, quite frankly. I don't think it is obvious.
It's interesting because Roger Ebert said, this is a quote from him, it says, "I like the movie without quite being caught up in it. I like the period tone and look more than the story, which I never really cared much about." And I'm baffled by that review.
I'm baffled by that. I don't see how you can't get caught up in this plot, in this story. It's one of the most intriguing film noir plots there is.
Well, I mean, it's just its theme of race. I mean, it's the plot is about identity and running from identity and hiding from identity and being afraid of identity, and that's what Daphne represents. This, like, I am of two races. I don't belong anywhere.
Absolutely. Who am I?
That's how she feels, and that's a big theme in the book as well. She feels like that, and so how he can say something like this, I'm just like, how are you missing all of this? What do you mean? This story is really quite powerful and gut wrenching in places.
It is. It's captivating as a thriller plot and as a mystery story. But yeah, on top of all that, and this is what film critics always seem to want, and critics generally always seem to want, there is a message, there is a theme, there is a point being made that isn't who killed McGee in the hotel room or whatever it is. There is a point being made which is still to this day of fundamental importance, and has been for decades. So that is just bloody mindedness, I think, and just an absolute refusal to see the film for what it is and what it so obviously is doing. I don't think you can watch this film and not be sure of its intentions, which isn't to say it batters you over the head with them, because it doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. It's very subtle. But as you said before, if you're paying attention to this and you're on the ball, those themes and those social commentary points are very, very clear by the time the final credits roll. Yeah. So I think Ebert's just being purposefully
a bit of a dick.
Yeah. Obtuse, I was going to say, Luke, but yeah, let's go with yours.
A bit of a dick. Because that scene where it's revealed in the book is such an incredible scene in the book. I think the film does the scene justice. It's such a powerful thing, because you just really understand the problems that people like Daphne were facing at the time, that were very different to the problems that people like Easy were facing at the times. And then you realize that, a lot of commentary today just sort of likes to blanket issues. And it's like, these issues are not, you can't blanket them. Like, one person's experience is not the same as another person's experience, even if they have a connection. Like, and I think that's what I loved about A Devil in a Blue Dress, the film and the book, is the way that Mosely just expertly walks us through this social commentary of 40s Black America. And if you let it, the book and the film will open your eyes to things that are important to be aware of.
It certainly does. And it also exposes, if that's not too strong or too dramatic a word, perhaps I should say, it also examines as does the film Sapphire, the hypocrisy of people who, when they find out she's mixed race, they've been quite happy to want to marry her, and to welcome her into the family, and to have her on her arm at social engagements. But the minute they find out she's mixed race, then she's a hot potato. Get rid of her. Well, she's still the same person, for heaven's sake. And that hypocrisy, which is realistic, unfortunately, and certainly happened in the time this film is set, and when Sapphire is set, and still now, is another point that this film is making. It is about the fight that black people had, but it's also about the hypocrisy of the white people.
Absolutely, definitely,
and how the two deal with each other. How any film critic can say he's not invested in that? It's just nonsense. It's one of the most layered, thematically serious and important films of all. I'd go so far as to say,
yes,
it's doing such important work.
Yes,
whilst at the same time, and here's the trick, telling you a bloody good story.
Yes. Yeah. So I really love the ending of this movie. So after, there's a big shootout scene at the cabin. We've kind of mentioned some of that stuff. And after that, that's when Daphne explains things, and there's some loose ends are tied up, but eventually Easy takes Daphne to her brother's apartment, and, it's a bit of a sad goodbye, and made even more sad by his saying he went back to her house a couple of days later, but they were gone. And so, he liked her. She kind of seemed to like Easy, and, he kind of maybe wanted them to get together, but ultimately she skips town. And you have that sort of, a lot of hard-boiled novels, film noir, have a very sort of sad ending.
Well, this is I think I mentioned it a couple of episodes ago. This is the Chandler thing of The Long Goodbye, where he ends it by saying, "I never saw any of them again."
Yeah.
That's this. So this.
So you have that going on, which I really like. Mosely handles that wonderfully, but I also like that he does a slight twist, and after the sad ending, gives it one more little ending that is a bit more hopeful. And it was something I took inspiration for my most recent novel, because I liked it. And the final shot is Easy at his house, sitting on his front porch, and he's been paid for the job that he did. He's paid his mortgage. He's a free guy, and someone's like, "Oh, you looking for work?" And he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna go into business for myself."
Yeah. Again,
a little
cheer moment,
investigating, and I'm like, "F yeah!"
Another cheer moment, like when he says, "I'm going to start fighting back," and he says, "No, I'm going to go into business for myself as a private investigator." You're like, go on then.
Yeah, I like the hopefulness of it. I like the fact, because your typical PI, your typical 1940s white PI is blue collar, poor, So I like the fact that this is actually subverting that, and it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
Easy's a good guy. He's got his house. He's proud of his house. He's not a rough and gruff individual who has 5 o'clock shadow all the time and is smoking and drinking. He's a good guy, and the ending of him being able to go into business for himself after the beginning of the movie being fired and being worried about not being able to pay his mortgage, I just thought, F yeah.
Yeah, and also and he is fine. He's fine from a job where he's just essentially a number, isn't he? He's just a cog in a wheel.
Worker, yeah.
And now he's going to be
his own boss,
the main man, sort of thing. But also, again, it's turning things on its head when so often these films end with a litter of corpses and the PI, world weary and slugging some whiskey. This ends with Easy smiling.
Yes,
in a nice oncoming sunset. It's sort of the end of the day, and he's got all his neighbors around him. I think this is where he's chased off the tree cutting neighbor from the girls' porch, and then someone drives on in a car, and he sort of pretends to stand in front of it, and they smack hands together or shake hands through the window or something.
Yeah,
and that Odell, I think he's called, the neighbor, who says, he says, well, if you had a friend who did something bad, and this is a reference to Mouse, really. If you had a friend who did something bad, and you still had him as a friend, would that matter? Would the bad thing matter? And Odell says, you've only got your friends.
Yeah.
And Easy then thinks about that and says, I've got friends. I've got my own house. I've got my friends, and I've got a future.
Exactly.
And it's so good. But it's not schmaltzy. It's not full of saccharine. It's just a great end because it's not done full circle, has it? It's done. There's been a character arc.
It's done a 180.
It's done a 180, yeah, from a man on his arse essentially to a man now about to make his way in the world, having found a talent for something.
Yeah,
it's a brilliant ending, and again a subversion of what you normally get in this type of film. I think what a film this is. What a film this is.
Yes. Now there's rumors of there being a TV show in development. I don't know more than that, so I can't say more than that. But I'm very interested to see. I know that Mosely is involved with that, so we will keep our eyes and ears open.
Yeah,
for news on that.
Mosely was involved in this, wasn't he? He was exec producer on
yes, he was involved in this as well. Yes,
and I wonder how much input he had because it's so tight an adaptation and it's so well done and it's so honest to his characters that writers have no say. But I'd like to think that he had some say in this.
From what I understand, Carl Franklin really liked this book, and I think you can tell that this is made by people who respect the book.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
You can. This is a film made with absolute love for its source material, I think, and he's all the better for it. He's all the better for it. It's well cast, it's well acted, and it's well adapted, and it's well directed.
Shall we rate this bad boy?
Yeah, go on.
All right. So, like we do every week, we rate all of our films from 1 to 5 Falcons, 1 being the worst, 5 being the best. So, out of 5 Falcons, what would we rate The Devil in a Blue Dress? Matt, do you want to go first?
I'm giving it a 5. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I have some minor quibbles. Like we find out what happened to the other mayor candidate, who is a pretty sleazy.
He's a
pedophile. He's a pedophile. But we don't see it happen, and I would have liked to see him get his just desserts one way or the other without having to be told that he did. But that's a very small gripe.
Yeah.
And there's only so much. I might trim a feather off a wing of a falcon for it. Because everything else is so good that gripe lasts about 30 seconds after the credits have rolled, and then you just start to remember all the best things.
For me, The Devil in a Blue Dress is a very firm 5-star. 5 Falcons for me. 5 Falcons. I love it. I've always loved it. It never disappoints me. Every time, whenever I go back to rewatch it, I'm always thoroughly enjoying it, thoroughly gripped, and happy to be rewatching it. So 5 firm Falcons.
And if you haven't seen it, it's a must. And if you haven't read the books, I'd go and search for those as well if I were you.
Yeah, they will not disappoint. They will. These easy. Walter Mosely is a fantastic author. Seek him out if you haven't got any of his books on your shelf, because dude is a genius.
Well, that wraps up our investigation. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with another case. In the meantime, please like and subscribe, and be sure to take care walking down those mean streets.